No, Buddha's fight is not in first place, but this ranking is just my opinion. If you don't agree, leave your ranking in the comments politely. Hey guys, how are you? I hope well. Let's make a ranking of the 6 fights we've had in the anime so far, so this video won't have manga spoilers. And for those who don't know me, I'm the Monio, the interdimensional demon that talks the most about Ragnarok on YouTube, and you're on my channel. In 6th place we have the fight of Lu Bu vs Thor. This is the first battle we have in the anime, and it is the fight that will define the scheme that we will see until the end of the story. Fight, flashback, plot twist, and winner. This type of story always gets more interesting when a technically weaker character faces a stronger character. This awakens in us the necessary empathy to automatically root for the weaker one. And because it is the first fight, we really don't know what to expect. Humans are apprehensive, gods are curious, and we are excited. And don't get me wrong, it's an interesting and pretty cool first fight. I think she's the weakest, as both characters lack charisma compared to the others. Lu Bu, despite being an interesting character, is not exactly a well of charisma, although he already has fans, who already know him, mainly from the game franchises he participates in, such as Dynasty Warriors. Thor already suffers from the same problem, lack of charisma. I find it interesting that he has an extremely powerful weapon and the character himself is very strong, and despite that he is not an arrogant asshole like other gods, he just lacked a nicer personality. So I leave this fight in 6th place, despite the fight itself being good. 5th, we have Adam vs Zeus. This fight is very curious and fun, and I just don't rank it higher because I think the others are better. But man, seeing a Zeus bodybuilder who doesn't shoot lightning, fighting with an Adam who only wears a leaf of a plant, and who has a copying jutsu, that's really fun. Although I think it has a certain design laziness, since Adam is basically Poseidon, only taller and more muscular. Seriously, they are the same. The fight is really cool even because there are 2 characters that represent both sides very well, with Adam representing the first human, the father of humanity, and Zeus, who is also called the father of the gods. And an interesting thing about this fight is that it subverts expectations a lot, because it is the second fight and the humans have already lost the first. Everyone thought that Hideo was going to beat Zeus, but that was not what happened, and that was a surprise for me. The ending is also pretty cool, with Adam treating all of humanity as his children who must be protected by their parents. Really a very cool and remarkable fight. In 4th place, we have Shiva vs Raiden, and here we have one of the most balanced fights. Raiden has a very interesting story and is a very charismatic character, and I thought that this would contrast with Shiva, since for me Shiva had a villainous look, but in fact that was pure prejudice of mine. Yes, prejudice, because he is a deity from a culture very different from mine. I believe that many people have already concluded that Shiva was a villain or something equivalent, but when seeing Shiva's flashback, we can see that he is a very nice guy, and also very charismatic. I think more charismatic than Raiden, perhaps the most charismatic god in all of Ragnarok, and this was the fight that I was genuinely in doubt as to who to root for. Both characters were very cool, the fight was very balanced, anyone could have won. I just don't put this fight in a higher ranking, because the fight itself was relatively simple, with exchanges of punches most of the time, and without anything much more elaborate than that, without divine weapons that have special powers or elements that make the battle more interesting. But I admit I was glad that Shiva won. Judge me. I know I should be rooting for humans always, but Shiva is a really nice guy. In 3rd place is Hercules vs Jack the Ripper. When I found out that Hercules was going to fight, at first I was discouraged, because I don't consider Hercules such an interesting character to see fighting, because the Hercules that we know from other media is just a strong guy, and in the Ragnarok fight itself he is in fact just a strong guy. Although he does have some abilities that are shown and that make reference to his 12 works, he is a very underutilized character in terms of powers. Despite that, Hercules' backstory turned out really cool. They managed to create a very creative story for him and much more interesting than the story of Greek mythology that we are used to. I just don't know if it's very coherent that he sided with the gods in Ragnarok, since in his backstory we see that he was once a human and that he fought against the gods. But the biggest challenge of this fight, without a doubt, was to give a cool backstory to a character that technically is as hateful and despicable as Jack the Ripper, and they managed to create an interesting story that made us sympathize and root for the character, still keeping him as a villain, and it turned out very well. He even reminded me of the Joker in a way, a character that is a very cruel villain, but that everyone thinks is cool. The fight itself is also very unusual, and full of plot twists, really cool. In second place we have Buddha vs Zerofuku. This is probably the fight that most people like the most and that puts them first, and yes, the fight is very good. Buddha is a very interesting and very charismatic character. Zerofuku, on the other hand, is a case of a very nice and kind character who corrupts himself wanting to help people, and then as his redemption, and who in the end is unfortunately acquitted, and turns into Hajuin, and the fight against Hajuin is very difficult, taking Buddha to the limit. And it's a very emotional fight, in the sense that everyone felt sorry for Zerofuku for all his sad history, and cheered when he turned into a Valkyrie and helps Buddha win. In addition, this is one of the most engaging fights and one that you most root for the humans to win, not only because of the Buddha and his story, but mainly because of what happened to Zerofuku. A really good battle. First up is Sasaki vs Poseidon. This was by far the fight I liked the most, despite Poseidon here being built just as a cold apathetic villain, with no more nuance. Everything is compensated by Sasaki's side. This for me was one of the coolest insights in the entire anime, using a character like Kojiro, who is known for his defeats, and putting that as a differential, in a personal journey of the character himself. For me it was something really great, even because the most obvious choice when you think of a samurai would be Musashi, Kojiro's rival, who has much more accomplishments and is much better known. But the development given to Sasaki, along with the concept of him being known as the biggest loser, makes the character unique. The fight itself is also very good, full of twists and turns and metaphors for the way both characters face the world and their opponents, in addition to being an extremely difficult fight, as there were already 2 defeats on the side of humanity, and it is paradoxical to think that the first victory will come precisely from the biggest loser of all, being the first victory of humanity and of Sasaki himself, who for the first time wanted to know the feeling of winning a fight. This not only connects with the character's own journey, which was always looking to improve until reaching perfection, but also conveys the message of how much failure also teaches us and the importance of never giving up. Seeing all those swordsmen encouraging Sasaki and rooting for his first victory, for me, is one of the best scenes in the entire Ragnarok, simply sensational. But what about you? Do you agree with me, or do you have a different ranking than mine? Leave it in the comments, and if you like the video, subscribe to follow the next ones. Until next time my people, demonic hugs.